okay, so this guy wanted to sell his boat and everything in it, and he was just done. And I gave him the name of a boat dealer and all that sort of stuff, and he started unloading his wet stuff off of his boat. And he had a whole stack of T-shirts that weren't wet, actually. They must have been in plastic bags or something. But he had taken them down to the South Pacific when he started 2.5 years before to trade with the natives for, you know, shells and whatever, souvenirs. And those days are gone. You know, you don't those days are just gone. The people know the value of their handicrafts, and a T-shirt doesn't hold much power anymore, and it's almost rude to try to exchange a T-shirt for something, you know, rather than something either money or something of much more value if you're bartering. So he had this whole stack of about 20 or 30 Superman T-shirts. They were white T-shirts, and they had the big red triangular Superman emblem on the chest, right? And I arrived in this island. I sailed into the lagoon and anchored on a Sunday, and I couldn't enter the country with the immigration and customs procedures, but I made everybody stay aboard the ship until we do it cleared, because that's the rule. But I myself went ashore to officially announce our arrival, which of course they could see the ship out there. But when I went ashore, there was a crowd close to the boat landing, and I went over to the crowd, and here was a soccer match in progress. And these guys were playing on a field, and the field wasn't big enough, or, you know, it wasn't a real soccer field, and there was a building that encroached on the field, and they used to ricochet the ball off of the building, and it was still part of the game. But you couldn't tell who was on which team, and they were charging back and forth into the ball, and they didn't have the shirts and the no shirts. Some of them had shirts on, and some of them had no shirts on, but that didn't distinguish the two teams, you know. And I was standing there, and people recognized me, but they don't speak English much at all, just a word or two. And but there was a pastor there named Pastor Joe, and he spoke English. And he came over to me and said, you know, how was your trip? We're glad to see you. You know, did you bring blah, 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 rice, flour, plywood, cement? And I said, yeah, I'm going to enter, and we'll be able to deliver tomorrow morning, you know. I'm watching this game going on, and his son was one of the star players, but I couldn't tell whether when his son made a great pass to somebody else, you know, on his team, because I couldn't tell who was on which team. And I thought, you know, if one of these teams wore the Superman T-shirts, we'd be able to tell the difference, you know. So I said to Pastor Joe, why come out to the ship with me when I go back to the ship. I have something I'd like to show to you, and we can have a cup of tea, and I'll show this to you, you know. So he came out, and we brewed up tea, and the crew were all there, you know. We were all having tea together and talking to Pastor Joe and everything, and I brought out these Superman T-shirts. And there they were, you know, brilliant white, clean, beautiful, brand new shirts. And I said, I think this would look really good, you know, on the soccer team that your son is on, you know, and then you could tell the difference, you know. And he said, oh, no. And I thought, oh, my heavens, what have I done, you know. And I thought I'd made this terrible social error. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry, you know. And he said, I think they'd look really good on the choir. And so I gave him all these T-shirts, and I imagined his choir. The choir stands up in front behind Pastor Joe, you know, and singing and music is a huge part of the service, you know. And so I imagine this choir was wearing their Superman T-shirts, you know, singing out.
Oh, that's cute.
So that's my story.
That's a great story. Yeah, thank you.
As long as they don't show it to
What is that? Is that a roll?
It really might be a snail.
This is one of Mom's worst rolls
Well, I'm glad
she's
you
ever
didn't
made.
say the best.
Do you need a sharper knife?
I think it's wonderful.
Do you need a sharper knife?
No, I'll
You got
chew
it?
it up. I've
Okay.
got good teeth.
Well, we just had to at least show a sample of this because Mom has never had a bad roll ever in her life.
Well, that's kind of what I'm used to because I've never made a good roll or a good loaf of bread in my life. I'm famous for lead sinker bread.
Yeah. Good.
You know, I could mix up a bit.